Good to see everybody. What Christine had asked me to do, and I've been working on with various folks from time to time, is how to find information about metro districts. And we're talking about institutionalizing or setting up an organized program to do this for some research that we're going to be doing. So I put this together as kind of an orientation. And as you'll see, a lot of this is going to, a lot of any individual's advancement in learning how to do this is going to be playing with it and seeing, going down rabbit holes and working through the maze. And as you do that, you learn a lot and you figure out what's important and what's not. But let me give you an orientation to it. And let's see. Metro district hiding places where to find information you didn't even know existed. It took me 3 months at least, and I continued learning over the next 6 years. 3 months to find documents that should have been provided to me well before I made any decision about buying my house to Metro District. So we still have a long way to go, but this will accelerate your learning process or information on it. So in my background, real quickly, master's in public administration, a lawyer, practices included land use and representing developers, served on several land use commissions, HOAs, etc. Been doing Metro District work for over 6 years now, published probably close to 200 blogs on it. Been active with the Coloradans for Metro District Reform, and we've been working on reform at the state house level, as well as the city and county level, and more importantly, on a district by district basis. Okay, so we start with this fellow, the developer. He buys some land. Christina asked me to put cows in the picture, so I got cows in the picture. And the developer puts the pipes in the ground. We buy the house eventually, and not too long after we buy the house, our taxes go up anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 per year, and they go up after that. And when you start asking questions, you hear something about, well, the developer has issued bond debt that you, Mr. Resident, Ms. Resident, are going to have to pay back. In this case, Red Rock Center in Jefferson County will be focusing on as an example, $45 million in bond debt issued, and residents will find out about it when they get their tax bill. You follow the money from your pocket to the developer's pocket, and in this same example, you see the $45 million, net $42 million, comes into District 1 from District 2. You see the transfer from District 2, and District 1, which is the developer district, then spends that money on capital expenditures, which of course means District 1, run by the developer, pays it to the developer who's running District 1 and 2. District 2 gets the bill, and you can see the property tax revenue for District 2 is $31,000. And now they're going to have to be paying, with a bond debt of $45 million, they're going to have to be paying anywhere from $2 to $3 million a year to pay down that bond debt. With a revenue of $31,000, you see there's a significant gap. So you learn for the first time, you've got bond debt that you didn't know about, and you can't afford to pay the bond debt. So how do you figure this all out? it's in the developer's documents. How do you get from here, the house that you bought, to this tax debt and this loan debt? It's in the developer's documents. So what are you looking for? Where will you find the documents? And what am I going to look for when I get the documents? What am I looking for? Really?
One fast question for you first. The difference between the 45 and the $42 million is the amount that the investment banker charges, or whoever placed the bonds?
Yes, probably so. We don't have, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. That'll be in District 2's budget, and we'll look at that. Save that question, and we'll look in the documents and answer it.
Could that possibly show up in the on the Emma side in the bond documents?
Yeah, it would certainly be there too, but hold
Okay.
those questions, because that will be an example. Will illustrate how you answer those questions in the documents. Okay, so what are you looking for? Basically two things: governance, how is this thing run and who's running it? Number two, the finances, follow the money, and how bad is it? How bad is it? Right now, it's looking pretty bad. If you've only got $31,000 in tax revenue, and you're going to have to be paying out anywhere from $3 to $4 million a year to pay those bonds down. Okay, so what am I looking for? Governance and finances. Where are you going to find the documents? Here are the sources that I rely upon, and there will likely be more, and others may find other sources, but these are the ones that I rely on. The Metro District website. Increasingly, the districts are creating websites and putting documents on the websites. There are new statutory rules enacted just in the last couple of years. They're putting more pressure on districts to do this. And that's a good thing. You know, we're having an impact. Our advocacy is having an impact, and they're creating these. It's less than perfect. Oftentimes I go to the websites and there's a nice little tab that says service plan. You click on it, and there's nothing there. But it's a start. First thing to know, the name of the community often has nothing to do with the name of the Metro District. Is this deliberate? Probably, but it's a challenge to get information. If you start with the community where you live, you look that up, and you can't find anything. I lived in Solterra. You look up Solterra, there's nothing about Metro districts. You have to know that the name of the Metro District is the Fossil Ridge Metro District. And you look up that website, and there you have information. The one we're looking at is the Red Rocks Ranch Community. That's the name of the development. All the sales information points you to Red Rocks Ranch Community. If you want to find out about the Metro District, you have to look up RRC Metro District 1 through 6, which we'll do here in a minute. And as I say, the websites are now being created, and they initially look like there's a lot of information there, but as we'll see again, there's a lot that's missing. I go to websites regularly, and you're just bombarded with all these documents. You say, oh, good grief, they're doing a great job of being transparent. But what you realize is they may have the service plan, they may have the most recent budget, and then they give you pages and pages of minutes of meetings or agenda for meetings. And as we'll see here in a minute, there's a lot of stuff, important stuff, that's missing. Okay, the DOLA site, the Department of Local Affairs, they have a statutory obligation. They're required to post various information and make that available to the public from local governments, including metro districts. So you can find a lot of what you're looking for on this website. there's a lot of data there that we're beginning to use more and more in organizing our research about metro districts and creating databases for metro districts. And there are others, Fair and Christina and Jeff and others have done a lot more work on that part of it than I have. So it's going to be increasingly valuable. Office of the State Auditor. Unfortunately, the audits that are listed with DOLA are frequently 2, 3, 4 years old. I think Christina is the one that put me on to the Office of the State Auditor. You can go and you can get the most recent audit. Emma is a private website for bonds, and I use it to look up the bond prospectus. There are anywhere from 150 to 200 pages in a bond prospectus that tell you everything you could possibly want to know about, in this case, metro districts and their financing. We'll see one for RRC here shortly. And it's incredible to think that there's all of this information that's served on a silver platter to the bond investors who are paying ultimately a lot of money to the developer, the bill for which we, the residents, get. And they're serving on a silver platter all this information to the bond investors to buy the developers' bonds. And yet they can't give us even a thimbleful full of information before we buy our house. And again, you'll see that here in a moment. One of the key documents is the ballot issue. Unfortunately, it's almost never posted. I have yet to see it posted on a website. They're often not found in DOLA, and I have to go to a court file. That's problematic. If you're not an attorney and you don't know how to navigate the court filing system, you end up having to go to the courthouse and asking a clerk to help find that for you.
Don, are those posted on the county clerk's website?
I don't believe they are. You have to go to the court clerk, the court clerk to find them.
And so these are the ones, I'm finding that these are the ones that are over 10 years old, right?
Well, they're as old as the initial election. So.
Right. And so, because I was just looking for one recently, and it was more than 10 years ago. So I couldn't find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For my own neighborhood. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And even and for some of the older communities, I go to the court file, and there was, I forget what the cutoff point was, but early 2000s is when they started to digitalize this stuff, I believe. So if it's too old, it's not even in the court file, the digital court file. You'd have to go to the courthouse to find it. Okay, so we have a couple of places to look for documents. What documents are you looking for on these at these locations? The first one is a service plan, and I won't go into a lot of detail about these. That's a subject for another presentation, but the service plan is basically the charter. It's not a constitution because it doesn't come from the people. It's a charter because it comes from a city or a county giving birth to a metro district, and it provides limitations, financial limitations, talks about the governance. So it's a good starting point to get some of the basic elements of governance and finances for the district. The ballot.
I'm not taking notes because I'm assuming that you can send us a document with all this on it.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can send the PowerPoint. Yeah,
okay.
And for some reason I've got I don't have the PowerPoint one that I've up it. so I can get the prettier one for you.
Okay.
At any rate, so the service plan is the charter. It has certain limitations in it. Then you have the ballot issue, which, as I say, is never posted on the website. And those limits that are in the service plan are immediately busted with the ballot issue. Increasing debt authority, for example, beyond what's in the service plan, and is a very important document. It's also the document where the developer sits around the table with his employees or family members and votes in this election to eliminate your Tabor rights. Thank you very much. And you now no longer have the opportunity to vote on tax increases or issuing bond debt. The board will vote on those. And of course, the board is going to be the developers until the residents wake up and get on the board. The audit, the most current one, is typically not on the DOLA site, and typically not on the website either. You'll find that in the auditor's website. The budget, that is frequently on the website, and it's definitely on DOLA. The bond prospectus, that 150 to 200 page document with all the good information in it, is, I've never seen it posted on a website. It's not in DOLA. You can only get that. I've only been able to get it through Emma. And then the agreements that the developer enters into with himself to obligate the residents to pay the developer all of their tax revenue. This is a pivotal document. It's a linchpin to managing these districts as the developers feel they need to. And it is a critical document. It's never on the website that I've seen. They're not on DOLA.
It doesn't show under the IGAs, because I thought on DOLA it had a place for the IGAs.
Yeah, it will list them by name, perhaps. Not all of them. Listen, but the document itself is never there.
Okay.
So in working with residents in metro districts, it's not uncommon that they have to CORA through the Colorado Open Records Act, the Freedom of Information Act. They actually have to formally CORA the documents to get them from the manager or the developer. Even residents who are serving on the board of directors frequently get stonewalled and have to CORA the document. And I get it. The developers don't want residents to know about these things, because those are the documents that residents who are trying to regain control of their own purse strings are going to want to terminate or renegotiate. Okay. And just to put a point on that, because I just love these. Here is the signature page for one of those agreements the fellow I'm working with just sent to me. And as you can see, this is an agreement entered into by the developer with himself. He has signed as the developer, as the president of the developer district, and as the president of all of the resident districts as well. Pretty convenient, and subject for another discussion. My opinion, my view on these things is that worth paper they're printed on, because I can't enter in an agreement with myself to have you pay me a lot of money. Okay, so again, we know where to look for documents. We have an idea as to what documents we're looking for. Again, as a reminder, what am I looking for in the documents that I find? Governance and finances. All right, so let's dive in. We'll do a little total immersion here. And as I say, what I'm giving you is some of the keys to finding mazes and rabbit holes to just explore. And the more time you just spend clicking and poking around on it, the more comfortable you'll get looking for and looking at these documents. So let's do it. I'm going to, all right, so RRC Metro District 1 through 6 in Jefferson County. It's located kind of across from Bandemere near Dinosaur Ridge. And if you figured out that Red Rocks Ranch Community Metro District is RRC, you can go to the website and here's what you find.
Is there a way to figure that out, or do you just have to have an address in the neighborhood and go to the authority, the taxing authority?
Yeah, it's not easy. Either that way, or sometimes I go to the map if I don't know, if I don't have an idea. Sometimes there'll be a reference to it in the on the website for the community, every now and then. But usually, by the time I get involved, usually I'm talking to somebody who lives there, and even they don't know exactly what they're looking for. But we, by looking at tax records or something they heard somebody say, we get the information. I had one just recently, and it took me over an hour working with the maps to try to find it. It's not easy. Okay, so here,
And I'm just going to mention for everyone else, the reason there is no number 3 here is because that's the commercial district.
Yeah.
It's only showing the residential.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things you see first, just as I say, we're learning as we go. One of the first things you see here is, as Fair said, we're missing a district, and we've got this thing called the RRC Authority. That's a red flag right away that this district has been organized with a what they call a community authority board, which is, just to put it in its most simplest terms, the developer has created a district where the actual districts have created a super district, and in doing so have obstructed the residents' ability to directly participate in the decisions of the, in this case, the RRC authority, because they are underrepresented. Fair and I were involved in this particular one. The developer filed an amendment to the service plan to expand what was originally just 2 districts, a resident district and a commercial district, expanded into 6 districts. And then they said, because we're going to expand it into 6 districts, there are so many of those that we need to have an overriding super board to manage the affairs of these 6 districts. And the initial proposal, similar to ones we've seen in about 3 other districts, gave 6 votes to the developer on the super district and only 1 to the residents, so the developer would always have control and over the decisions. We objected to that, and shortly before the hearing, they said, no, you're right, we're not going to give 6 votes to the developer anymore. We'll just give everybody the same number of votes. And then what we found out later was, yes, they created 6 districts. They each got 1 vote, but 3 of the districts would never have any people in them. They'd still have a 5-member board of developer employees or family members, but there'd never be any people living in there because the territory for that district was a retention pond or open space that wasn't scheduled to have houses. And I guess there was one that wasn't going to be built out until the very end. So they played the game that way. So at any rate, as soon as you open this up, if you kind of have an idea as to what you're looking for, you see automatically there's a governance issue here. The developer has structured the government in order to suppress the residents' opportunity to be directly involved in the decision-making authority. Okay. Recent posts. Well, this is interesting. They've got all these meetings scheduled and they were all canceled. So that also indicates to you that there isn't a whole lot of citizen participation taking place. So I'd say, okay, so let's start looking at some of these districts. We want to get access to the documents. So let's go to District 1. And there you go. You've got a nice list of things that are available to you about District 1. Annual reports, audits, board member information, budgets, elections, map, meeting minutes, meeting notices, public disclosures, service plan, transparency notice. You'll want to kind of play with these to look at them. We won't take the time to look at each and every one, but I can tell you the one that's really going to be the most help to you from this website is the service plan. A couple more clicks eventually get you to it. And the service plan gives you that charter that I described before with the initial set of limitations. So that, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So that is beneficial. The audits, I don't think the most recent audit they had is 2021. I think the audit from the state auditor is going to be more current than that. These annual reports are total fluff. There's really not much of help there. And again, you can look at it, but
and John, just a question on the audits. What's the threshold for having to do one? Isn't there a threshold?
Yeah, so under the statute, and I'll have the number wrong, but under the statute, they're not required to issue or to prepare an audit until they've incurred so much money in debt. I don't recall the number. I'm thinking it's around 700,000, but I'm not sure about that. There's some threshold number. So you'll frequently see on the DOLA site that they have requested and obtained an exemption from filing an audit because they didn't meet the threshold. Budgets, I think these are probably, so they've got the current budget, that will be there. The map for District 1, just to show you what that looks like. District 1, and you can see the lots are plotted out for District 1. Let me show you District District 5's map just for grins. Open space. No people will ever live there. Okay. Let's go. So again, if I were doing a workup on this, I would pull up the service plan. The others I'm kind of soft about because I would not feel comfortable relying on those. I'd rather look at them through DOLA or the state auditor site. So I'm not wasting time looking at old information. But again, if you're doing a workup and evaluation on a district, play with these a little bit and see what looks interesting to you from what's available.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. This is Gina.
Yeah.
If something like something came up in an audit, like something where a district violated statute, or there was something really wonky with the financials, is there any oversight that the Office of the State Auditor provides? Is there any repercussions for the district?
And we had this conversation a little bit last night. I'm not the best one to answer that question. That would be more of a Charles Wolfersberger question. He's a auditor and manager that works only for resident metro districts. But in your case, where the budget expenses exceeded the budget income and violated, I think it's a constitutional provision that the budgets have to be balanced. I don't think there's any penalty or any enforcement from a regulatory body, but I'm not the expert on that.
Christina, can you answer that?
I'm thinking I know a little bit, but not enough to be dangerous. Gina, one of the first problems is that they can get a waiver on the audit, and there are a significant number of audits being waived. And the other thing I think is happening is I think this may be a filing system, and that's all it is at the state auditor's office. So short of somebody calling attention to it at the state auditor's office, it may go unnoticed.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. And I think in my district's case, I think, they'll be able to easily fix it because budgets can be amended even after the fact. But I was just wondering if anybody actually reviews the audits that are filed.
Yeah, and then my personal comment on the state auditor and their intelligence is not nice.
Okay.
State auditors tend to have political science degrees, not accounting degrees.
Yeah. I mean, what we're finding generally, and I know you all have experienced this already, but finding generally about metro districts is that there is no oversight at a state or local level. It really comes down to the residents. Okay, so we looked at the district's website, and as I say, I would pull up the service plan, but beyond that, I'd go to DOLA. So here's DOLA. As you can see, there are different tabs. There's different ways of organizing it. I go straight to the alphabetical table of contents, if you will. I'm looking for RRC Metropolitan District under R's, and there you have them. RRC Metropolitan District 1, 5, and through 6. And it includes 3, which is the commercial one. So we'll hit 1. And in terms of the governance, I'm trying to figure out, is this a metro district that is run by residents or by the developer? And what's the relationship between the districts? Is this a master servant type of arrangement? Is it a CAB type of arrangement, which we already saw evidence of on the web page? The service plan will help us a little bit there, but to nail it down, we have to dig a little deeper. So here's District 1, and we saw from the map of District 1 that it had a lot of residents in it. And what I just start nosing around here. We've got director information, so I look to see. I mean, unfortunately, I've gotten to know so many of the names. I can tell you some significant percentage of times just by looking at the names, I know it's a developer-controlled district. And so I'm looking at the names here. I recognize a couple of them. I've done some work on this previously. So, and honestly, I'll pull up a name, and if it's one that I haven't seen in a while, I'll Google the name. And not uncommon for the Google result to show their part of this development group, or they work for Lennar, or they work for one of Brookfield or one of the others. So that, just basic research.
Sometimes I go to LinkedIn.
Yeah, there'll be a Lincoln site to there too. Another key, you hit elections. When you see the election is canceled every year, that's a pretty good indication that it's a developer board, especially if there has been no break in that and it's always been canceled. Now, with this DOLA listing, we've struck a little bit of gold. And this is the only place I ever find it on DOLA is under elections. You struck a little bit of gold. You see there 2016 certificate of election results. That's your ballot issue. I'll click on that, maybe twice. And yep, sure enough, there's the election that took place in 2016 that's never posted on the website. This is where they increased the budget or the debt authority and took away your tabor rights. And typically you've got these three folks whose names I recognize. They work for the Lennar or Fentena Development Company, and or the developers. And
If I remember correctly, when I did this one, John, I think the initial one was all Ventana.
Yeah, that's where
The developers. Yeah.
Linda, this is one of the things we're going to want to track. And
so you
the other, and I'm just going to say this now, one of the things I've seen in the last couple of months is some of these districts that haven't had an election, they didn't fill a seat, and all of a sudden they're saying they don't have to fill that seat until 2027 now, which I don't know if that's correct or not. I don't think it is.
if they have an open seat, excuse me, and even just one resident in the community, that resident can self-nominate for that seat. And the other board members, if somebody self-nominates, have an obligation to fill that seat with somebody who self-nominates. So I can hear them saying they don't have to fill it because they don't have to have an election. But if there's an empty seat, there's an obligation by the then sitting or remaining directors to fill that seat and appoint a replacement. Excuse me, the statute essentially says there has to be 5 or 7 directors. And, there's another district in adjoining this one, Big Sky District, where there was only 1 director. Now they have 2. And you say, well, how does it matter? What does it matter? And the bottom line is that any decision that they make, any vote, if you will, of 1 person or 2 people that they make is subject to being challenged as void because they didn't have a lawfully constituted board, because they didn't have enough money or enough members. Is anybody ever going to challenge that? Well, if there are no residents there, probably not. But technically that's,
And who would you challenge it to? Is the other question.
Well, you would file an action in the court saying that their decision to issue bond debt was invalid because the board was not lawfully constituted and violated the statute. And the judge would have to say, yeah, there are only 2 people here, they're not 5. That decision's void.
So could that happen with this one now, since there were only 3 initially?
Well, no, this is something different now.
Oh.
This is the ballot issue. They're not.
Okay.
they're not issuing a bond. They're not sitting around the table in a meeting of the district board saying we're going to go into debt. This is the election. This is the residents, so-called, of the district voting, just like you and I would vote to issue bonds or increase taxes in Lakewood or Jeffco. Everybody's familiar with Jeffco's effort to de-Bruce, to eliminate Tabor rights, and it's failed. The effort by Lakewood several years ago to keep the money left over the budget surplus, and the voters voted it down. This is an election. This is the voters, everybody in Lakewood or Jeffco voting on these ballot issues. It just so happens that since there are no people in this district at the time, just prairie dogs and rattlesnakes, the developer gets to a point, or just not, he gets to, I guess, call an election with his family members and employees. And in this case, there were 3 of them. And the 3 of them voted on all of these ballot issues. And they all passed unanimously, no surprise. And when you look at these ballot issues, and again, some of these ballot issues, the first time I saw them, I literally had to read them a dozen times to figure out what they were saying and what they did. So they're clearly not written for any layperson to try to figure out what the heck's going on. But here's the first really one of substance. Shall the Metro District debt be increased $50 million with a repayment cost of $410 million? Okay, so what does that mean? Well, what they're saying is, shall the district be able to issue debt principal in the amount of $50 million with a repayment cost, which would be principal plus interest, of up to $410 million. And what are they doing this for? As you see down a little bit further, to build gutters, culverts, curbs, street improvements, so forth, bike paths, so forth and so on. And then about halfway through here, they say, when we issue this debt, we are voting to allow us to charge an interest rate there in the 4th line of not to exceed, thank you very much, 18%. And then the real kicker here at the end is the board is going to make these decisions about issuing debt, and when they do, it's just like the voters voted to do it. And they're going to be able to do this notwithstanding the limitations in Tabor and notwithstanding the rights in Tabor that you and I get to elect this, because they are voting, those 3 people are voting to comply with Tabor by eliminating Tabor, or at least the Tabor rights, to vote, the de-Brucing. Now, what some residents are doing when they get control of the board is having another election and say, instead of 3 people employed by the developers having an election and voting to impact our rights and our finances, let's have a real election and repeal what they voted on in 2016. The other thing to know about these is, and we have authority for what I'm about to say from the bonds and from testimony by the industry during hearings in front of the state legislature, they add these up. So there, in this case, I think there were 8 of them. They add these up. And so we're not talking about 50 million, we're talking about 50 million times 8. We're not talking about 410 million, we're talking about 410 times 8. In our case in Solterra, it was $4.9 billion of debt authority that 8 people voted to impose on the residents. And they don't tell you this, of course, when you're buying your house. They don't post it on the website. And you really have to dig sometimes to find it. But here we got lucky and found it on the on DOLA under certificate of election results. So when you're looking through DOLA, always go to elections and see if per chance it's there. In my experience, maybe 20-30% of the time you'll find it there.
John, how many houses were due to be built in this area?
For RRC,
950. 950.
okay, there you go. Okay, so then other documents. I always look at finance, just see, again, you see they applied for exemption from audits, so we're not going to get any audits. Go to the budget. They're pretty good about posting the most recent budgets. And there we have the budget for this year, 2023. Again, you want to play with this and go through it. Budgets are wonderful things. Their plans, their financial plans, their history, they always tell a story. And sometimes you'll get narrative that talks a little bit about the district and the relationships of them. You get more of that in the audits because the reporting requirements are a little more rigorous for the audits, not so much for the budgets, but you still look at the narrative. But anyway, so here's the financial snapshot. This is District 1. You see the property tax revenues and you see the expenditures. And excuse me, you see lots of nice round numbers, which are always flags in their budget for how much they're going to spend. And what's interesting here for this relatively new district is you see that you're basically paying overhead costs for the developer, his lawyer, his accountant, and other expenses, and they're doing it through the district. Here you have the capital projects fund, and that's where we get the bond revenue. Again, you look at the revenues. This is District 1. It says transfer from District 2. Well, already you know that this District 1 is probably the developer district and not issuing the bond debt. District 2 is issuing the bond debt, and that's typically a fingerprint for the resident district because the developer doesn't have any tax revenue, and they sure as heck aren't going to be wanting to pay bond debt. The residents are going to do that, and the residents are going to transfer the bond revenue from their district to the developer district, which is what they're doing here. The expenditures you see, so the money comes in from District 2, it goes out, capital expenditures. In some budgets, in Solterra's budget, you know, I've actually seen them say, you know, reimburse the developer for their advances. They weren't shy about saying it's just going directly to the developer. Okay. Christina Fair, you had some questions about where the 42 million came from when we started with 45. So let's look at the District 2 budget. Okay, so let's look at District 2, since we know that's the district that sent all the money to the to District 1. There's their property tax revenue. And now here's the capital projects fund. Here we go. Bond proceeds were 45 million. The adopted budget showed 43. So where did the rest go? Well, you see expenditures, 1.1 million were bond issuance costs. What were the bond issuance costs? The attorneys, the bonding agency, all took their cut in processing this nice little package for the developer, which totaled in this case 1.1 million. So they had 43.8 million. And you'll see in the actual column there, June 30th, total funds available 43.9 when you added some interest income. And then they expended 21.4 million to capital expenditures, leaving a balance of the 22.6. Okay, I didn't see any notes. Oh, this is of interest at the end of the budgets, typically, not always, but typically they'll show the mill levy. This is the tax rate that's being imposed on the residents to pay that debt. And in this case, they've got 55.6 mils for the bond debt and 3 for the operations and maintenance. So let's look at the finance and see if there was an audit yet under DOLA. And you'll see here, this is District 2 that issued that bond debt. They aren't current. They're still showing exemptions from the audit. So let's, since we're curious about the audit, let's go to the state auditor's website. Oops. Let's do it this way.
So everybody knows that's $431,000 worth of bond attached to each home just for one of those bond authorizations.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, this is a little awkward, but we'll get to it. Let's try it again. Sorry, let's try. Try it one more time. Okay, let's try it. Okay. Oh, shoot.
You lost it.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm going to try it one more time. The state auditor's website will have the most current budgets for us. Not budgets, audit reports. And what I wanted to show you there was the additional detail that's available in the audit that you don't, that's not going to work, that you don't get in the budget. Oftentimes you'll, not often, but in every audit, there will be a phrase in there, a section that says all of the board members, all of the directors are employed by the developer and have a conflict and have disclosed this conflict to the other board members. So that tells you also that that board is a developer board and not residents. If there's a mixture, they'll say 3 of the 5 board members are employed by the developer and have a conflict, and they've reported that conflict to the board. The other interesting narrative or historical information in the audits is oftentimes they will explain the relationship between the various districts. They'll talk about one is in essence, the master district, and the others are the resident districts, the servant districts. So the point is you'll get some more narrative history about how the districts are organized, how the money flows from the audits. You'll get a lot more of that from the audits than you will the budget. Let's go to Emma real quick because I'm running out of time, and hopefully that site will work. Emma is where I go to look up the bonds, where I have some indication that bonds have been issued. We know in this district that it was from the budgets, and so I would go to the website to find that bond prospectus and learn as much as I can about the district. So here's Emma, and you type in Emma bonds, and this comes up. You've got your search box up in the right-hand corner, so type in RRC. And even before you're done typing, it tells you RRC Metropolitan District 2 in Jefferson County. So you click on that. You agree to accept the terms. And you'll see here there's a bond listed in the with the hyperlink. You click on that, and sure enough, there's a $45 million bond. You click on that again, and that gets you finally to the official statement. And that official statement, which is about, again, 150, 200 pages, is there. And you look at this and you say, okay, $45 million, 2021. And the very first thing you see is in the right-hand corner, it's not rated. And that tips you off right away that this is probably a developer-held bond. Oh,
I see. Up in the right there on the front page, not rated. Okay, so that's an indicator. I didn't know that. Okay.
All right. Are you guys seeing on what I've got on the screen?
I see municipal board ruling. Okay, I now see RRC.
Yeah, we can
number
see
2.
it now. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've got the Emma site that I'm scrolling through?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so we get to the bond again.
Oh, yeah, that's not, maybe I can share mine. I've got it up. So there it is up there.
Yeah, so that's your bond. If you scroll down, I just get us to the, there you go. So I don't know if you can blow that up, but that's a really nice table of contents. All of these bonds are basically the same in terms of their format. You can almost go to the same page of every bond and find the same thing you're looking for. I don't know if you can blow that up at all.
I don't know how. Let's see. Oh, here. Oh,
I'm expanding.
That plus sign, the plus sign over in the middle of the screen.
Oh, okay. There we go. How's that?
Yeah. So just to give you all a flavor of what, for example, there in the lower left-hand corner, the districts. page 44, the organization and description, the multiple district structure, the governing board. It goes into great detail about all of those things. And this is a wonderful source of information to finally putting together each of the pieces of the story. How is this thing governed? Who's governing it? And then follow the money. Many times they'll actually have little bios of the board members in this document, usually under the district section or the development section.
Here's something on Lennar.
Yeah.
That's telling about the.
Yeah, again, so you can spend as much time as you want going through this and finding all kinds of good stuff. The other thing that I look for here, if I'm on a tight time frame, I look for the governance just to confirm how the thing's organized and a little bit about the board members. And then I go to the debt structure and how the money is organized or presented. And what you'll see here is they have a couple of schedules that show how the bond will be repaid.
I'll take us down there. How's that?
Yeah, okay.
Let's see. 82. How do I do this quickly? Oh, I got
In
it.
page 82 where the 19 is.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. Let's see. Usually it's the one I look for is the payment schedule. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Debt structure. Huh.
Yeah, I think it's
Should be
But-
here.
yeah. But what you'll
Oh,
find,
financial forecast.
those are attachments.
Oh, here's some of this issuance costs, bond proceeds, issuance costs
Yeah, this is-
available for improvements. So there's some of it, Christina, that you were asking about.
But
Here we
this-
go.
Fair. This is an attachment to the bond. It's in the appendix. This is not the bond itself. But anyway, what you'll find here is there you go. Okay. Can scroll up a little bit. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you go up?
Go up a little bit more.
Yeah.
So this shows the repayment, right?
Yeah. This is what I was looking for. Okay, so you can see right off the bat that the bond that is issued 2021, the repayment schedule has delayed the payment of the principal for over 10 years. Interest keeps accruing, so the development is going to be, or the residents are going to be paying interest, and by 2025, their interest payment is going to go from 23,000 up to 1.2 million. So the game here is that the developer wants to get enough people in their houses sold by 2025 to start paying that 1.2 million of just interest beginning in 25. And you can see that by it continues to grow. The taxes continue to go up to meet these payments, and the total amount paid grows from 23,000 to $5-6 million. The other
It still shows the principal balance of 45 million.
Up until 2034. But
Yeah.
to put it in perspective, in 2047, without any other changes, the property tax bill just to cover this much would be 5803 per property. So that's an approximate number.
Yeah.
And just for this one tax district.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, a wealth of information, and depending upon how much time you have or you want to take, there's a lot to learn from the bond prospectus. And again, the thing that's so insidious about this is this information is served on a silver platter for the bond investors, and you, the residents moving in, get none of it. And it's all here. And and we proposed this, you could very easily take 3 or 4 or 5 key pieces of information, put it on a half-page disclosure, and give it to the residents at the time they make an offer on the house or when they first come into the showroom. This information condensed down into a paragraph on a half a page should be part of the MLS listing, but it's not. They can give it to the investors, but they can't give it to the people actually paying the taxes. Okay, so.
And one thing, John, not just about this particular, I mean, this isn't typical in all of these, but the fact that this is not their only metro district in this neighborhood.
Right.
Because they've got the water district, right?
Yeah, so that's a whole nother story. But yeah, one fact about this particular area is that there was something called Mount Carbon, which was an original metro district created in the late 70s, I think it was, to develop all of Rooney Valley, including Solterra and this area as well. It went bankrupt. Long story short, it was resurrected out of bankruptcy. It is a sanitation district providing sanitation services to